If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, all over this land.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, I think we're gonna have a little fun today, because when people are risible and send themselves up with their preposterousness, it is our duty to actually be entertained by them. I cock my finger as I declare I'm classy, and all my friends and acquaintances are as classy as I am too. Let's plunge in, shall we? I'm going to cover a lot of ground today, and some of it is going to be rather detailed and forensic. But I see no merit in allowing propagandists to tell us that black is white, pink is green, and zeros are heroes. So shall we plunge in with Joe Vickers, who says, due to the backlash, H felt he had to state the award was for the Invictus Games, but he couldn't bring himself to say, this award isn't for me. No, he had to say, this award isn't for Prince Harry. Well spotted, Joe Vickers. I will get to that speech and the presentation, not only by Harry, but also by Serena Williams in a little while. And isn't it touching to see that Marie Shenton, at the moment that Harry was giving his speech, sought the comfort of her husband and the father of her 5 children. I gather he's her husband for some 20 years. And she sought his comfort to get over the hump of all of the issues that involved the husband to whom she was married for 2 years and with whom she lived for 2 months before his deployment. But we're getting there in a little while, because there's nothing better than puncturing the balloons of the pretentious. Samantha Kay says, it's been rumoured that the palace is considering taking Invictus away from the Harkles. Do you think this award permanently linking Harry to Invictus was a deliberate attempt to prevent that from happening? First of all, Samantha Kay, the Harkles don't have Invictus. Harry is the patron of Invictus. I'm a patron of 1 or 2 charities, and I'm going to tell you how that works. They ask one to be the patron, and one says yes. And one is supposed to publicize the charity wherever possible when one can, lend one's name, which will hopefully influence people positively, and basically assist them in raising money. It's not about the glorification of one. It's about one's appeal being utilized by the charity for the greater good of the charity. Let me just make that point for what it's worth. Harry has no right to or entitlement to Invictus Games. He is merely the patron. He isn't even the actual founder. The charity also is not an original charity. It is a copy of a copy, because it, by his own account, was influenced by the Warrior Games in the United States, which in itself is a copy of the Stoke Mandeville Games, which were founded by Sir Ludwig Guttmann. But we'll get to that in a moment. So you see, it's not even number 2, it's number 3. Is it a deliberate attempt to prevent Harry from being moved on? Well, if he gets an award, it helps his visa situation. It helps to make him qualify for an O1 and shift over from an A1. And also, it does help to an extent if he is so associated with the charity as being a hero himself. Well, I used to think that hero was spelt with an H. I've recently discovered that it's spelt with a Z. Oh dear, how does that work? You know, it's not only people within Invictus and some people who have the interest of the royal family generally and the monarchy at heart who are becoming and have become increasingly concerned at the way Harry and his wife, and it's interesting that you said taking away Invictus from the Harkles, because Meghan has no position whatsoever, but in the public eye she does, because she's there first and foremost flaunting those turkey legs and those chicken feet as she saunters in front of all of the veterans in a jacket that's longer than her shorts. Well, it's not only people in the charity and people within the, shall we say, extended reaches of the monarchy who are concerned. The army, the air force, and the navy are also concerned. They are appalled at the way Harry and Meghan have hijacked Invictus and turned it into a dog and pony show for a bitch and a mule to saunter and flaunt themselves all about the place. Remember what Admiral Lord West had to say recently? That is the voice of the military speaking. I've said it elsewhere that I have been aware for some time now that there is tremendous concern within the military for Harry's continuing position on Invictus. And let's leave it at that for the moment. Because Asturian en Muros says, and this is brilliant, and I am reading it out because it's really wonderful that we have a community of such knowledgeable, informed, intelligent, and interesting people. Dearest Lady C, have you heard of Thorpe Mandeville Hospital? I actually had, but I don't think many people have. During and after the Second World War, they treated very badly wounded members of the armed forces. Pioneering rehabilitation work was implemented and carried out by Dr. later Sir Ludwig Guttmann. And at this point, let me stop and say, Ludwig Guttmann was a German doctor who fled to the United Kingdom from Germany. If I remember correctly, it was in 1937, with his wife and children. He was Jewish, and he had been subject to the Nuremberg laws. And he was brilliant, and he had been spearheading all sorts of medical advancements in Germany. And when the Nuremberg laws were brought in after 1933, he wasn't even allowed to practice as a doctor, except to practice as not a medical practitioner exactly, because that signifies doctor, but a doctor without being a doctor for Jews. And he got the opportunity to escape to England, and he did. And he had the war effort, and at the end of the war, he was rewarded, and he ultimately became Sir Ludwig Guttmann. So let me continue. He started using sport to rehabilitate and encourage disabled veterans. That's right, because he was a great believer in physical activity and sport. It became so popular that it eventually became the Stoke Mandeville Games. Stoke Mandeville is the hospital that he helped to pioneer, that was originally called something else. It was called the Thorpe Mandeville Hospital in Thorpe Mandeville, which still exists. So let me continue. It eventually became the Stoke Mandeville Games, events held for competing disabled veterans nationwide. It eventually became the Paralympics. The Warrior Games is a wonderful event, but not a founding principle or idea. A German doctor working, treating wounded Allies soldiers deserves recognition, gratitude, and praise. If you wouldn't mind mentioning this, as it infuriates me that this good man and Stoke Mandeville Hospital are so overlooked and quite frankly denigrated in all this. We thought of it first with the Warrior Games nonsense and wally waving, and then the copycat of, I was inspired by the Warrior Games and I founded the Invictus Games. They're both subsidiaries of the Paralympics, which were the Stoke Mandeville Games that became so popular that they were called the Paralympics, which still exists. So I think we need to fix that in everybody's mind. And I suspect if I don't address it, no one else is going to. So it's important that we address these things and give credit where it's due. Colin Alexander says, if anything, celebrities are putting people off charity endeavours. We are more cynical now, and now I look to only help my aged relatives directly. Colin Alexander, those who aren't cynical should be. Charity in my lifetime has gone from being, what was basically people of privilege making a life's work of helping people who were not so privileged and to improve their lot, to professionals are milking the situation for what it is worth, and assisted now in the United States of America by all sorts of laws that allow charities to function partly as tax wheezes, but we'll get there hopefully a bit later. I have to tell you, I refuse point blank to give to any charities. If you say going to the petrol station and they or Tesco and they say, will you give such and such to charity? Not a chance. I say no every single time, and I'm proud of it. What I do say yes to is the charities I have always supported and I still support, and to causes like Care for Veterans, which on Saturday we're having a ball for, because it's a genuine charity. But a lot of these American charities especially, give me a break. They are tax breaks for rich people. And the incentive was originally that it would be set up so that it would be a financial shelter for money, and people would be induced to give to good causes and thereby benefit financially. And to an extent, it still works. But there are far too many people now in the United States of America who simply abuse the charity system. In England, it's a lot more difficult to do so, because we have the charity commissioners breathing down everybody's neck back. But we're going to get to that right now, because Marina Bowman says, it seems there are too many charities being ripped off by grifters. The tax departments should look into these charities being used by people as their own piggy banks under the guise of costs and wages for themselves. It has and will put a lot of people off donating anything to these charities, to these entities, It's just making greedy people richer and does nothing charitable of any worth. Well, some of them actually do some good. I mean, the Pat Tillman Foundation, as we will get to in a little while, originally did quite a bit of good, and it has distributed money that it has raised and supported worthy causes. Of course, it's also been one of those gilded step ladders that the Megans of the world ascend, because there's that element to it too. But we'll get to that in a minute, because I want to make the point that authorities set up the charity structure as tax breaks for the rich, which would also hopefully benefit society in a more general way. As with everything, as soon as leeches see that there's blood to be sucked, they jump onto the body, whatever the body is, and suck the blood. Anything can be abused if people are determined enough to abuse it. And in America, I'm afraid there is a lot of flexibility and turning attention away from charity abuses. Here in the UK, as I said a bit earlier, we have the charity commissioners. And when the abuses come to light, as they did with Captain Tom's charity, the charity or Sister Space. Remember Sister Space? My name is Ngozi Fulani, and I have bangarang all about my head and everywhere else, and I am an inauthentic African princess, but descended from West Indians. And how dare anybody ask me where I'm from, because I'm not going to tell them, because I don't want to get found out when she got found out. And Captain Tom's daughter thought she was going to plug in And she found that she plugged into the national grid and got a hell of a shock. So, Pam McCarthy says, donating to each other's charities, does that mean the recipient can use 95% of the money received in expenses? If, for example, money was donated from Archewell, it isn't even Hartle's personal money, but it buys them what they want? Well, Pam McCarthy, you're on to something. I donate to your charity. Let's take Harry and Meghan and Pat Tillman's foundation. They donated $250,000 to the Pat Tillman Foundation. They get a tax break for that. So right there, they've not donated $250,000. In return, now they haven't bought the award. They have bought influence. It's influence peddling. It's back scratching, but it's not a straightforward purchase, although it's a backdoor purchase. And they get the award. So instead of paying Sunshine Sachs the significant sums of money they were paying Sunshine Sachs, they are effectively paying the Pat Tillman Foundation. On the other hand, the Pat Tillman Foundation receives the whole of the $250,000. And then, of course, Marie Shenton and her husband have such phenomenal expenses that practically every penny that is donated ends up in their pockets, because it's a very expensive thing doing a pucker charity, especially when it owns a golden step ladder that people use to climb up the rungs in a worldly sense. Because, as we are about to discover, Marie Shenton has been assiduous in cultivating people of influence and power over the decades. The charity has been going for 20 years, and over 10 years ago, she was slapping on the brown lipstick, scurrying up that ladder, shades of me again, and sucking up to the royal family. But we'll get to that in a moment. Victorian San Jill says, very sorry for Mrs. Marie Tillman. Her son's legacy through the Pat Tillman Award will be tarnished forever. There will be skepticism about any future person's nomination now that the management style of the company, in quotes, quite right to call it that too, has set up in his honor and has been revealed. Connectivity between the current players, the questionable ethics of his former wife and her current husband, the intersection of Better Up and the commercialization of Invictus Games. The light is now shining on the dark behavior of all those involved in promoting Harry as a hero. Well, as Lord West made absolutely clear, Harry's no hero to anybody in the military. So let's leave it at that. He would like to be presented as a hero. They've paid good money so that he would end up being presented as a hero. Hero spelt with Z is still zero. Now, I'm going to make one or 2 points. And I've made them notes, and I'm just going to whiz through them, hopefully, so that this will not take an eternity, because I want to be very precise. In fairness to Harry and Marie Stenton, the Pat Tillman Foundation was one of the sponsors for Harry's trip to the South Pole with wounded veterans in, I think it was 2013. So long before that woman came on the scene, Marie Shenton had got in there first. Now, there obviously is a certain type of girl from a certain type of world in certain circles in not only the United States, but since they both come from the United States, we'll stick to that. But it's international, actually. So it's nothing against Americans generally. They see an opportunity, and my goodness, they're right there. And Marie Shenton clearly is a girl who, from she was very young, saw an opportunity and made sure she capitalized upon it. Widowhood has been a very enriching exercise for her, even if the death of her husband, her first husband, has been anything but for his mother. So, but Harry was supported by the Pat Tillman Award with Walking with the Wounded. The Brits raced against an American team led by Alexander Skarsgård, who was the Swedish star of True Blood, and there was a Commonwealth team led by the movie star Dominic West, who recently played King Charles on The Crown and who is a star of The Wire. Dominic West and Prince Harry fell out big time when Dominic West dared to say something nice about Harry, because Harry didn't want anybody saying anything about him that he couldn't control. So let's remember that Harry's mania for control began before Meghan actually pitched up to show him the way forward. At 5:40 on the 15th of December 2013, the Pat Tillman Foundation posted the following message: "Wounded vets, Prince Harry reach the South Pole." I have been told by people in the United States of America that Marie Shenton, and I'm not calling her Marie Tillman because she's not Marie Tillman anymore, she's Marie Shenton, is quite the operator and knows how to butter her bread, and has done it very successfully, capitalizing upon her late husband's name. And his mother is anything but approving of the fact that shenanigans have taken place that should not have taken place. I'm going to leave it at that. Most people seem to have missed that while the event was about to commence, a plane flew over the Dolby Theatre with the message, and I'm quoting, "Prince Harry, investigate Mummy's death." And mummies is spelled M-U-M-I-S. Now, Americans don't call their mother mummy. They call their mother mom or mother. I know I have American nieces and nephews. I have American friends. I can't think of one person in the United States who calls their mother mummy. Not in my generation, and certainly not in any successive generations thereafter. It takes no great genius to figure out that somebody with a British link, and I don't think we need to look much further than the state in which the event took place, to figure out that somebody with a foot in the British camp ordered the message, and they clearly did it over the phone, or they instructed a member of staff to do it, but it was done verbally, with the result that mummies is spelled M-U-M-I-S, because it's phonetically mummies, but it should be M-U-M-M-Y''S. Now, if that's not a big giveaway, I don't know what is. And I'll tell you what I think has happened. And since this is, in my opinion, a very important point that seems to, a second point of this event, so to speak, that seems to have eluded people, is that who could have done it? Remember, Harry in his speech linked himself to his mummy, and investigate mummy's death. It is clearly a slur on the British nation and the royal family, because mummy's death has been investigated exhaustively, including by me. I most likely know more about Diana's death than most people, because not only did I write the posthumous biography and interview all sorts of people, but I followed the inquiries and the inquests, etc. Investigate mummy's death. In other words, she was murdered. That's what they're trying to get across. Now, if that is not truly malignant, I would like to know what else is. There is no depth that isn't low enough for certain people to sink to. I am just beyond horrified. I recoil from such debased antics. You notice Harry and Meghan skipped the red carpet. Both of them skipped the red carpet. And I am told by people associated with what went on in I need to be careful what I say. I don't want to give away too much information in terms of to whom I'd been speaking. They were terrified they were going to be booed. And so they made sure they skipped the red carpet. He also made sure that by skipping the red carpet, not only would they not be booed, but that when he got up to give his award, he kept Master Sergeant Israel del Toro Jr., who is America's version of Simon Weston, who is one of our heroes who was burnt in the Falklands War. and who has never received the recognition that he deserved. He deserves a knighthood or to be made a lord, but he's never received it because he's a conservative. Is that not a disgrace? Notwithstanding the fact that he has injuries. He has raised hundreds of millions of pounds for charity. Just shockingly disgraceful. Well, Harry bounded up onto the stage. The claw released her grip on his thigh and allowed him to go up with the... I'm so self-satisfied and smug. I'm superior to all of you schlumps. I am. Well, he goes up on stage and he makes sure he punches every single emotional blackmail button he can, and to ensure that there will be no sharp intakes of breath or boos, just in case there are. He keeps the other 3 awardees on the stage with him. He prevents them from leaving. He virtually orders them to stay. And they have to stand and listen to his interminable speech. But what he couldn't calculate for was that he didn't get the standing ovation that Israel del Toro got, because Israel del Toro preceded him. He suffered serious burns and he gave a wonderful acceptance speech, touching upon his fear that his son would have been repelled by his new appearance, and the little boy wasn't, and his son was there, and so was his wife. Just beautiful. Of course, Israel del Toro has also been an Invictus competitor. Well, I have nothing but admiration for Israel del Toro and all of those other people who got the awards. I really do think, though, that Marie Shenton has one hell of a nerve, social climbing her way up that golden step ladder, using money from supporters to enhance her trajectory, Meghan Markle-like, upwards. You begin to wonder if her marriage to Pat Tillman would have lasted. I certainly wonder, because, I mean, it's one thing when you're teenage sweethearts to get married a few months before someone deploys, but would the marriage have lasted? I find Pat Tillman was obviously a man of character, and I'm not sure he would have stuck with a wife who was quite so pragmatic, shall we say, and leave it at that. Nevertheless, Harry's speech, I have to tell you, I thought was a very, very well written. He clearly didn't write it. It was a study in blackmail, emotional blackmail, and it was a study in silencing critics and pushing himself forward. I'm pretty sure he didn't write that speech. But he also, remember, was introduced by Serena Williams. And what did Serena Williams do? She made sure she took the wind out of the critics' sails by alluding to the fact that Harry and Meghan normally suck the oxygen out of every room, but that she was the star of the evening. Now, some people would say that was dissing Harry and Meghan. No, it wasn't. That was colluding with Harry and Meghan, tongue in cheek, to actually make people know with a very clear message that A, it was her evening, B, they were to behave themselves if they had any intention of doing otherwise, they being the viewers, the participants, the onlookers, and they were to remember it was her evening, and therefore they were to treat her friends, in quotes, nicely. Well, of course, they're all in bed together. Marie Shenton, Serena Williams, her husband, better up, Meghan, better down, Harry, Chief Impact Officer. Well, anyway, this speech, as it was written and it was delivered very well, Harry actually is far more personable, I've always said it, naturally, than Meghan. And he delivered the speech very well. And he understood that they all understood they'd better come up with a speech that addressed the controversy and did it in such a way that it saved everybody's face and one or two asses as well, to be blunt about it, because several of them have behaved like absolute jackasses and they need to have their asses properly preserved in aspic. So I hope you're not horrified, because I'm actually horrified that people could have been so flagrant and abusive of Marie Tillman and Lord West's imprecations, shall we say. Well, Harry got no standing ovation, which I suspect would have horrified both him and Meghan, but then again, it does feed their awareness that everybody's against us and we're just so wonderful and people are always just taking liberties with us and depriving us of our just desserts. Anyway, he gets up and the speech, and I'm going to go through the speech hopefully quite quickly, because first button that he presses is that I will never leave a fallen comrade, which is Latin. And he alluded to the fact that it's two Latin phrases. I think he actually meant adages, but because a phrase is not a whole sentence, but both of them, as all adages are really whole sentences. So the first one is nemo residio, which means, well, they both actually basically mean the same thing. So just let me save time by saying, and the second one is ne quis pro tergum, and they both mean that leave no man behind. This started in Greek mythology, and with the Greek city-states was an absolute code of honor. Then Greece gave way to Rome, and they have, from Greek and Roman times till now, been the codes for soldiers, sailors, airmen, because the soldier's creed is, I will never leave a fallen comrade. And the airman's creed is, I will never leave an airman behind. Now, this is a core value for veterans, because when in ancient Greek and Roman times, soldiers who were captured or who were infirmed and then captured, so if they were left behind, they would be enslaved if they were fit, and they would be annihilated if they were infirm. So, because no army that was a victor was going to take and care for injured soldiers or sailors. So, that was a brilliant way to start, because he is showing that he is honorable, that he believes in the soldiers and airmen's and sailors' code. I mean, sailors actually don't get left on a sinking ship either. If it may be each man for himself once the ship is sinking, but if you see, even in the water, even an enemy nowadays is supposed to rescue any victim of a shipwreck, even an enemy victim. So he was showing how wonderfully noble and honorable he is. Leave no comrade behind, leave no man behind, leave no person behind. However you want to dress it up, that's what it means. I suppose that means he shouldn't have left King Charles III behind. He certainly shouldn't have left his commander-in-chief behind and sullied her reputation and legacy the way he did, and collude with his wife in sullying it even further. That's not honourable. Denigrating your commander-in-chief and literally leaving her behind. Oh dear, oh dear. But anyway, let's continue with the speech, as opposed to all of the false claims and hypocrisies and speaking out of the wrong side of his mouth that took place. Let's remember that these award ceremonies are mutual admiration societies and mutual congratulation enterprises. So the likelihood was that there would be little or no sharp intakes of breath, because the environment was very controlled, or that there would be, if there were, they would be mavericks who had somehow worked their way in, or were enraged by the treatment of Marie, by Mary the mother. Because remember, Marie is the wife, Mary is the mother. The mistreatment to which Marie Tillman was subjected, and the abuse to which she was subjected by the Sussex Squad, Harry and Meghan supporters, whom they did not call to order on any of this. So there was a little chance that one or two people might have got in. So that's why he needed to keep those other three people on the stage, because the perception was, if they remain on the stage, the likelihood is he's not going to get booed even by a maverick. And he didn't get booed by a maverick insofar as I'm aware. Well, he started off the speech, and again, this was really brilliant propaganda. I mean, Harry and Meghan, I've said it before and I'm going to say it again, they have really superb propagandists working for them. The fact that they are wildly inconsistent and that they are all over the place doesn't alter the fact that often each little situation is bullseye. It's just that when you have a wall full of bullseye, bullseye means nothing. Bullseye only means something if it's on a darts board or on an archer's board. But if everything on the wall is bullseye, it is meaningless. Nevertheless, they do hit the target. He started in the most offensive, hypocritical, and quite frankly distasteful manner. Pat's mother, and I'm quoting him, or maybe I should, Pat's mother, her advocacy for Pat's legacy is deeply personal. In other words, what he's really saying is it's irrational and therefore she wasn't justified in criticizing him. And since she did, he's going to be bigger than she was, and he's going to pretend that he admires her while bearing her with condescension. So then he continues. Well, let me start over again. Pat's mother, her advocacy for Pat's legacy is deeply personal and one that I respect. And I'm going to stay in character for him now, because what he's saying is, that's a very British way of patronizing and disagreeing with someone. The phrase with due respect, or the use of the word respect in certain contexts, invariably means lack of respect. So if I say to someone, with due respect, I think that you don't mean it, what I'm saying is, I have no respect for you, and I know you're nothing but a shocking liar. So then he continues. The love between a mother and a son is eternal and transcends even the greatest losses. Interjection. This is what I really mean. Pat Tillman's mother is misguided, and I'm not misguided. I love Mummy, and this is really about me and Mummy, and I know all about mother love. Pat Tillman's mother doesn't really know anything about mother and son love, otherwise she wouldn't be criticizing me, and she was doing it. But then I'm going to be bigger than her. I'm going to pretend that I admire her. Rank hypocrisy. But of course, Harry is showing us that he has perfected the art of hypocrisy under the ministrations of Meghan. So, the truth is, I stand here not as Prince Harry, Pat Tillman Award recipient, but rather a voice on behalf of the Invictus Games Foundation. Interjection. Those speechwriters have made me say that, and thank God somebody's saving my sorry ass, because quite frankly, I wouldn't have known how to save it. So, I may not be the brightest spark, but I know how to deliver a speech, and I know when people are saving my sorry ass. I was in the army. I can use graphic language. Continue. Then I'm sick of mimicking him. And he then continues that, and the thousands of veterans and service personnel from over 20 nations who have made the Invictus Games a reality. So he's accepting it on their behalf. This award belongs to them, not to me. Never were truer words spoken. Of course, that really burnt me, but I had to say it. The things you have to do to keep yourself in a money-earning capacity, to keep a totty in good Chanel bags, and, well, I used to love her. I certainly loved what she did. Roasting chicken. Love a roast chicken, you see. Then he continued, that said, it is of great importance to me to highlight these allies, athletes, and their amazing families for their achievements, their spirit, and their courage at every opportunity, especially on nights like this in front of people like you. Moments like these help us reach those who need Invictus the most. Then he roped in Nelson Mandela. I don't recall that Nelson Mandela had anything to do with being a veteran, but he never misses an opportunity when he is in deep shtuck to rope in Nelson Mandela. So he yet again managed to exploit Nelson Mandela for his own purposes. And there I suspect that was his and Meghan's input. I don't think this speech was written by either of them. I think this speech was written by people who are more sophisticated, intelligent, and adept than them. Equally manipulative, but more adept than them. So, he ended by saying, our community proves that unity is not just possible, but formidable. Excuse me, unity. The veterans community proves that unity is not just possible, but formidable. This from a man who was a veteran, who betrayed his commander-in-chief, who betrayed the army, who, when he was supposed to have attended a military event to honor those victims of the Deal massacre who had given their lives for our country, he was working the room with Bob Iger at the Lion King premiere instead. Unity. He couldn't even honor his commitment to the military when he was still here doing official duties. He had to be trying to shake those money bags and get commissions from Disney for Meghan. I'm sorry. The guy is a total shameless, opportunistic disgrace and hypocrite, in my view. I am appalled that he had the unmitigated gall to stand up in front of people. He should have done the honorable and decent thing and been sick, the way Meghan is sick whenever she doesn't want to do something. Maybe Archie could have fallen and scraped his knee, or Lilibet might have broken a fingernail, and they had to stay home and minister to them. We're such good parents, you see. We make the sacrifice when we have to travel, but we're good parents otherwise. Now, H, do you remember the name of our son? What's his name again? Is it Bunker Harry? No, Meg. It's Archie Bunker. Yes. Well, on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you would like us to be addressing. Okay, thank you so much. Godspeed and goodbye. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye-bye.